Hi guys, it's Ember, and so if you didn't know, today was the Day of Silence, which is a day that is supported to help reach out to gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, LGBT, people who are being bullied, and it is where you go all day completely being silent. Um, and that's supposed to help say that they're being silent and then they're being bullied and no one's doing anything about it. So all day at school, I didn't talk at all, and I'm a very talkative person, so that was incredibly difficult for me. But but to break the silence, I decided that I was going to read a story that I wrote in 2011. So that was 2 years ago. So I was 13. Um, I might have been 14. I think I was 13 at the time though, because I'm turning 16 on May 9th, which is awesome because I get to be 16. Actually, that's not really an accomplishment. I'm not exactly excited. But anyway, I thought I'd read this story to you guys, and I sincerely apologize if it's terrible because I have not read it in 2 years. So we'll see how this goes. And I'm sorry if I mess up because I probably will. So if I mess up, I'll probably just make like a bleh sound. But yeah, you guys probably don't care. But anyway, here is the story. The soft beating of a heart, the sound of life. What would there be without it? The sun's rays filled the streets of London, now teeming with people as the day proceeded to move forward. Almost everyone who inhabited the city seemed to be enjoying the warm spring day. Children ran through the streets playing tag. Merchants stood outside the shops, waiting for any customer they could come across. Tourists flooded through the streets, snapping pictures of anything they saw. The whole city seemed to be full of life, all except one house. The shutters were drawn shut, and all the lights were off. It seemed as though no living organism had lived there in years. A slender, pale hand reached out and touched the cold glass window. A small voice sounded in the cold darkness of the seemingly abandoned house. "Mom, why am I not allowed outside?" A short woman with scraggly gray hair stood in the center of the house. Her eyes were hollow, and she seemed to stare off into space. "Ash, dear, I have my reasons." Her voice quavered as she spoke. She didn't set eyes on the young girl. Ash threw her small body off the chair she was sitting in. "There you go again! I can tell by the tone of your voice you don't even want to look at me. Whatever is wrong with me is all your fault." She ran upstairs, her long brown hair bouncing behind her back. Her mother looked down at the floor. Tears flowed from her aging face. Her whisper was barely audible. "I'm so sorry, Ash." Ash threw herself under her bed. She tried to cry, but no tears became present. "What is wrong with me?" she mumbled to herself. Her hand found its way to her face as she traced each of her scars. Her large crystal eyes were of no purpose to her, for she was blind. She had no idea what she looked like, but she knew there must be something awful about her appearance. Her mother had never let her outside the house her whole life. Now she was 16 and had never been outside of her own little world inside of her house. The sound of footsteps came from the stairs outside of Ash's room. The sound of her mother's voice came from outside of her room. "Ash, I have something from you." Her door clicked open as her mother walked in. Ash buried her face into one of her pillows. Her voice was muffled by the fabric against her face. "What is it?" She felt the weight of her bed shift as her mother sat down beside her. Her voice was somewhat stern. "Give me your hand." Ash stretched her hand toward her mom. Something cold and feather touched her palm. Sitting up, she grabbed the entire object. She drew her fingers over it. There were 2 holes shaped like eyes and one shaped as a mouth. "Is it a mask?" she inquired. Her mother nodded her head. "Yes, it is," was her only response. Ash handed her mom the mask confused. "What exactly am I supposed to do with it?" Her mom clung onto the feathered mask. "I'll allow you to leave the house if you promise to wear this at all times. You may never take it off," she said. Ash's face lit up, her brilliant blue eyes flashing as she said, "Okay, I promise." Her mother closed Ash's hands around the mask. Ash grabbed the mask and held it to her face, fastening it behind her head. A sort of joy seemed to flow through her. "I finally get to go out," she thought to herself. "May I go now?" Her voice showed her excitement. Her mother looked down, avoiding eye contact with her daughter. "If you must." Ash leaped from her bed, running downstairs. "Thank you, Mom." Her mother sat on Ash's bed. "I hope this isn't a bad idea," she spoke to herself, setting her head into her hands. Quiet sobbing sounds escaped her mouth. A slight breeze blew into Ash's face as she opened the window. no, the wooden door for the first time. She reached up to touch her mask to make sure it was still there. She took her first step into a new world. She stumbled slightly but caught herself. She would have to feel her way through the city. Vibration shook her feet as a car drove by. She heard all different sounds surrounding her. So this is what London is like. She began walking forward until she made contact with the fence. She felt her way alongside it, hoping she wouldn't wander too far. Now I'm starting to think it would have been better if Mother had come with me. She pushed the thought away from her mind. I can do this by myself. Her feet carried her forward. Voices came from all sides of her. Who is that? Why is she wearing a mask? Where'd she come from? Ash ignored the voices and continued walking. She had no idea where she was going. It just felt good to be out of the house for the first time in a short life. All of a sudden, her feet began to shake. A loud honking noise came from behind her. She tried to run, but she didn't know what direction to go. She braced herself for instant death as the car seemed to come closer and closer. Then a large body slammed into her, pushing her out of the way. A scream escaped her lips. What are you doing? She stopped what she was doing after hearing a loud pounding in her ear. What is that? It was a fast rhythm coming from her savior's chest. A rough voice answered her. I'm saving you. What do you think I'm doing? Then he stopped, looking surprised. He looked into her glassy blue eyes. You're blind, aren't you? What are you doing out here by yourself? Ash shook her head and said, It doesn't matter. What really matters is what is wrong with you. The boy looked shocked. What do you mean? You're the one walking around with a mask on. Ash shook with fear. Her voice quavered. Your chest. It was beating. The boy looked around and laughed. You mean my heart? Ash looked concerned. What exactly is a heart? The boy looked at her as if she was completely insane. Are you joking? You don't know what a heart is? He moved toward her. You have a heart, don't you? You're human, right? Ash's eyes became wide. Am I human? The boy grabbed her wrist, putting his thumb on her vein. Here, I'll prove to you have a heart. I can find your pulse like this. He stopped in mid-sentence, his eyes wide. You don't have a pulse. What exactly are you hiding under the mask anyway? He reached for the fasten button. Ash tried to run away, but it was too late. The back snapped, revealing her face. The boy stumbled backwards, stifling a scream. He ran away from her, leaving her in the middle of the sidewalk. Everyone who paused by her gasped or even screamed. She covered her face and ran in the opposite direction of the voices. She realized she had run into the middle of the street. She held her hand to her chest, feeling nothing. What am I? Is my mother really my mother? Where will I go now? Thoughts poured into her head. The sound of a car came closer to her. She was too lost in thought to hear it coming toward her. The car made impact with her dead on. All of her mind went blank. The loud voices of people surrounded her, and for a moment her sight came back. She lay in a puddle of blood. No blood came from her, and for the first time in her life she saw her face. It was covered in scars, showing where she had been stitched together, created by some sick being. I'm nothing but a living doll. Her last thought filtered through her mind until every sense had become nothingness. The mask lay by her broken body, torn from her disfigured face. The cause of her destruction. Can someone without a heart, a living doll, actually die? Or were they never alive to begin with? Alright, well that was semi-terrible. But anyway, if you like this, maybe I will do some more of old stories that I wrote for class. By the way, this was written for when we were reading Frankenstein in class. So, yeah, that's why it's got the whole thing. And we had to pick a symbol out of a hat, and I chose the symbol mask. So that's what that story came from. So, anyways, if you guys did like it, then that's cool. But if you didn't, I'm sorry I wasted like 9 minutes of your life. Anyway, I love you guys, and thank you for listening. Bye!